Welcome to our channel. Get ready for a collection of incredible stories that will send shivers down your spine. If you love mystery and horror, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more thrilling content. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into the stories. I can't sleep anymore, I've lost count. I just lie on my bed, staring out the window, watching the trains go by. When it's exactly midnight and a train passes by, he appears. At times like this, they tell you about something terrible in their lives or a cursed place, but I have nothing to say. I don't know who he is, where he came from, whether he's a demon or a spirit. I don't care about any of that. After all, it smooths out my loneliness in a half-abandoned settlement where mostly old people live, and mature people like me are just looking for peace of mind. I found my peace in the face of a freak with claws and a strange shell head, from the slit of which you can see a nasty and pouty face. The doors of my house are always open to him. He comes in boldly, shuffling his big feet. His shuffling is even louder in the house. The wooden floorboards under him creak so much that they are about to break and this weirdo will fall under the floor. After a few long minutes, the weirdo sits down at the table and looks at me. I get comfortable on the couch and start talking about stuff. The overnight guest doesn't understand anything, but he makes a great listener. And so it goes on all night until the first rays of sunlight appear from under the horizon. Then my guest goes back behind the railroad tracks. Perhaps he once lived in this house. Or just connected to this house. They never told me anything about the original owners. Maybe it's just bad luck. There's a field behind the railroad and a swamp behind the field. Drowned men walk through the settlement every night. But why do they come to me? After all, there are several other houses in our backwater, some of which are inhabited by people. They're probably not interested in old people. Let's get away from all this, it's making my head hurt. One day I was digging in the vegetable garden and noticed something strange. My neighbor's grandfather was looking at me, saying something under his nose. He was crossing himself, waving his hand. Did he notice how I had visitors at night? So he started asking God for help so they wouldn't come to him by accident. I guess I'm in a lot of trouble with this evil force, but what can I do? I gotta spice up my life somehow. Besides, I want to treat my friend to some potatoes tonight. I wonder if evil things like potatoes. What else do they eat besides human flesh? That's very interesting to me. I'll find out tonight. When the moon rose quite high, piercing the darkness with its pale light, I went out onto the porch to greet my guest. I think I'll give him a name, because I always call him different names. It's embarrassing. I didn't cook the potatoes, I didn't do it. So the unclean one doesn't demand to eat, that's fine. And here he is. Exactly on time, when the last train had passed, he came up to me, examining me. He obviously didn't expect me to come out to meet him. We sat like that all night, looking at the moon like two wolves. Funny, isn't it? Man and something otherworldly sitting on the porch like cronies, enjoying the beauty of the night. When the first rays of the sun appeared, he left me. At that moment, I addressed him by the first name that came to mind. See you later, Jim. That's a cool name, I like it. A couple of days later, a strange symbol appeared on the fence, a circle with a diamond in the center. I trimmed back and forth a bit, and noticed exactly the same symbols on the houses where no one lived anymore. Putting two and two together, I began to realize that it had something to do with Jim coming in at night. Most likely, he had once lived here, in this miserable and forgotten village, but then mysteriously disappeared. Could it have something to do with the field? Or even the swamp? To be honest, every night I notice a strange bluish glow coming from there. I never wondered where it was coming from, but now I'm thinking of finding out. Now there is a desire to know something hidden and terrible, which is unknown to no ordinary people. It's hard to call it an investigation. I just wondered what would happen to me next. Once, for the sake of interest, I decided to cross the railroad. Surprisingly, there was a path in the middle of the field, but it was somehow crooked. At almost every step there were small holes, various irregularities, and it wagged from side to side. I followed the trail and came to a swamp. And there was nothing there. Absolutely nothing. I wasn't expecting to see anything, but I was saddened anyway. I thought that, like in typical horror stories, I would find some remnants of human bodies and other traces of a coven of the unclean. Swamps just like swamps. Reeds and stink. The only creatures were frogs, bewildered by my presence. But it was the first time I'd been out for a long time. I was in nature, so to speak. I was curious, what if we had a picnic here, next to the swamp? Would Jim and his tribesmen, if any, like it? I'd have to try to make it happen. That night, I pulled off such a marvelous idea. I didn't take much: smoked chicken, a dozen boiled potatoes, a couple of sticks of sausage, and a few cans of liquor for myself. I doubt they would drink such things. With a weighty bag I went down the trail, 5 minutes before midnight, and my buddy Jim ran into me. Too bad he can't express emotion, or I'd have laughed at his surprise. Jim stood like that for a minute, turned around and headed back into the swamp. I followed. Then I noticed that the swamp stench was gone. Some strange and pleasant odor hung around, and a purple glow pulsed, luring me in. The eerie hell was ear-splitting, but at the same time it was pleasant, like a beautiful melody. When I emerged from the field, it wasn't a swamp, but a small camp, where the haggard ones like Jim wandered about as if they'd escaped from an underwater city. The campfire exuded a violet glow, but instead of fire, an incomprehensible substance danced from the ground. A male centipede crawled past me, cocking his head in all directions, examining me. A woman with legs like a heron joined him, scooping me up with her swimming hands. Small children, like tadpoles, peered out of the thicket of withered reed stalks. Their big froggy eyes, not blinking once, frightened me very much. Here, in the swamp, a whole world of unknown creatures hiding in the darkness of the night. And only the moon shone on them. Jim came to a sort of altar of grass and stalks. With his mass of reeds, he picked up a clay bowl with an incomprehensible liquid and held it out to me. I didn't know what to do. Run away? Take it? The monsters surrounded me on all sides, howling. Jim shook his claws, spilling the liquid in all directions. Like blood mixed with wine, the aroma tickled my nose. I took the bowl gingerly and sipped. A warm and pleasant feeling filled my body. Everything in me stirred, my insides began to twist, and my head became a heavy burden. I began to transform, losing my human senses. The last thing I noticed, before I became one of them, was that I now looked like the frogs that had been staring at me perplexed in the same place the day before. And that was just one chilling tale, but we're not done yet. Get ready, because the next story might be even more terrifying. It all started when I went to my grandparents' house in the village for summer vacation. I don't know about the others, but I really liked spending time with them. No worries, no responsibilities, live and be happy. In the morning you can go fishing with Grandpa, in the afternoon play with the kids, in the evening watch my favorite cartoons on the old TV. Only my dreams gave me discomfort. They started since last summer, when I came to the village. All the 2 months I was there, I had only nightmares with the same character. An old grandmother, with a couple of hairs on her head, all twisted, with a thick stick, on which she was leaning all the time. She was dressed in tattered rags. This image kept me awake all summer long. But as the day progressed, the dreams were forgotten and I also spent the summer day carefree, but as night fell, there she was again. This summer it got much worse. If before I used to dream somewhere from the outside, and just observed what was happening, this summer, the dreams were with my participation. Over and over again, the same dream. I'm sleeping on my little bed, the moon is shining through the window, crickets are buzzing outside. And then she appears. At first it stares at me with white eyes in one window, then it climbs into another window and starts pulling its bony, hairy arms. I can't move for fear, I can't even scream. Morning comes, I wake up in a cold sweat, check the windows, and I start to let go. That night my dream happened again. I was asleep in bed as again I saw eyes in the window. Strange, but I was aware of myself. I could control myself. I did not scream, for I knew or thought it was a dream. I knew that now she would climb through the window and I would wake up again, and here it starts. She pulls her bony, wrinkled hands and grabs me by the leg. Here I started to scream. I had never seen this dream so far. She starts to drag me. I cling to everything I can. I call my grandmother and grandfather for help. Nobody hears me. My hands are already on the windowsill. My nails are digging into the wood. But this creature is much stronger than a child. She pulled me out and started dragging me through the yard to the garden. Then I heard our door to the house open. Did my grandparents hear me? Suddenly something squealed. It seemed to me that this squeal went around the whole planet several times. From the loud scream I lost consciousness. Through the blur I saw my grandparents running, but it was not them. The face was theirs, but they looked like big angels, which gradually turned back into humans. I woke up in my bed. My grandparents were already bustling around the house. Everything was fine. I got up and went to get my clothes, which were hanging on a chair near the window. A shiver ran through me. There were my fingernail marks on the windowsill. I looked at my hands. There were bruises on my nails. It was all very strange to me. All day long I wondered. Was this a dream? Or was it all in Java? My grandmother called me to the kitchen to eat. At breakfast I started to look at my grandmother. I thought she saw it. I quickly removed my eyes and started to eat. When I went outside, everything was the same. Grandpa was still mastering something in the barn. The affectionate cat Felix was happy to see the sun, and there was morning birdsong all around. I went to the spot from my dream. There was crumpled grass. It was definitely not a dream. In the evening, at dinner, I decided to stay up all night. Or rather, pretend to sleep, but really just close my eyes. Our bedtime was at 2200 hours, every hour the clock beeped, so I decided to determine the time. At about 3:30, I felt a stare. I knew it was about to start. I opened my eyes sharply. But instead of the old woman in the window, my grandparents were standing in front of me. They were not angels like last time. They were horrible, dark, and horned. "Are you trying to trick us, Maximka?" the grandmother said in a squeaky voice. "You can't fool the old devils," added the grandfather. They both laughed. I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do in this situation. In the window I saw the same white eyes. It was the old woman who always wanted to take me away. She broke the window and jumped on my grandmother and started biting her neck. My grandfather, or rather the devil, with the face of my grandfather, began to push the old woman away from his beloved, but his attempts were counted. Having finished with my grandmother, the old woman attacked my grandfather. Having disposed of them, she took me by the legs and dragged me towards the garden. Gently laying me on the grass, she fixed my hair and flew away. I didn't know what to do. What was all this? Who are my grandparents? Who was that old woman? Without strength, I just cried and sat like that until dawn. And that was just one chilling tale, but we're not done yet. Get ready, because the next story might be even more terrifying. An old Ziggle, engine roaring loudly, pulls into the garage. The car immediately shuts off, the front doors open and two guys approach the trunk. "You think she's still alive?" Timur, the passenger, spoke in an agitated voice. "Fuck, you and I have checked 100 times. She's dead, kid, she's dead." Jaeger, the owner of the car, replied through gritted teeth. I knew this party was a bad idea. We could have just stayed home, just had a beer. She dragged us there, and we assholes agreed to it. Plus, we were wasted." Yeah, you're right. Lena came at you with the bottle. She's a mean girl. She got a little drunk and remembered some old grudges. That's enough talk. Better help me." Igor takes the dead woman by the hands. Timur without further ado took hold of her legs. The guys dragged the girl's breathless body to the cellar. It's good to have a cellar in the garage, especially near the house. Timur was trying to calm down, so he talked tirelessly. Igor, meanwhile, was fiddling with the lock, but the damned key wouldn't go in. After a couple of minutes the cellar hatch opened, revealing the darkness of the abyss. "That's it, bring her here." Igor descended a few steps and looked at his comrade. Timur was a little confused that he did not immediately notice how the corpse had already disappeared. "Yep, I think she's gone." "What do you mean, gone? She just got up and walked away unnoticed?" I don't know. Timur is on the verge of hysterics. "Don't yell. Let's go look for her." The garage complex was pretty big, so the guys had to split up. In case of discovery, call. In addition to the large area, the autumn night was thickening the dark colors. The flashlight in my phone didn't illuminate as much, so I had to peer in sometimes. The main problem was the dogs. Sometimes they appeared in the garage complex, and not all of them were harmless. Some of them were ready to pounce and eat human flesh. We tried every possible way to solve the dog case, but the dogs kept coming. We had to take pepper shooters or something heavier to defend ourselves. Their barking echoed throughout the complex. Igor was a shy guy, he flinched at every rustle. All sorts of bad thoughts popped into his head. Maybe Lena was still alive, and while the guys weren't paying attention to her, she had escaped, or maybe she had become the walking dead. Maybe even an evil spirit, now playing with them like a cat with mice. He never really liked going to parties, but Timur insisted. Why not, if there was a best friend around, who, if trouble came, would always protect him? But they both hadn't expected this kind of trouble. Lenka is their common friend, she is always with them, because they come from the same yard. She herself admitted that she liked the company of Timur and Igor better than spending time with other girls. Lena is a very strange girl, on the face of it quite normal, at the first communication also does not give away anything, but over time, when friendships become really friendly, Lena begins to behave differently. She became jealous of other people, even men, spinning around like a little dog. She talked non-stop about what true friendship meant to her, especially with guys like Timur and Igor. It was all about them, annoying everyone, even those two. It all upset Lena, but she pretended it was nothing. Resentments inside were piling up like garbage, and only the contrived friendship kept the girl in high spirits. Alcohol made all the bad stuff come out. At the party, Lena couldn't stand it and began to tell what had accumulated in her soul. She literally blushed with every sentence, with every bad word about Timur. It was he who had poisoned her against everyone. Igor tried to settle the situation, defended the poor girl. After all that was said, she suddenly took up a knife and lashed out at Timur. Attempts to stop her failed time after time, until there was a brief muffled scream and hiss. "I'll take you with me," Lena's last words, and dropped dead right on top of Timur. Everyone watched in horror, someone already wanted to call the police. After 10 minutes the situation was hushed up, they decided not to call anyone. Just pretend that no one had been murdered. Timur took it upon himself to dispose of the corpse. Igor volunteered to help him. All these events did not get out of Igor's head, which made his paranoia grow. An inner voice told him that the future would be miserable, and everything would go wrong. His oh. The boy froze, trembling like an aspen leaf. A chill ran down his back, wet with sweat. Igor couldn't believe he was hearing Lena's voice. She herself appeared on the roof of one of the garages, smiling broadly. The girl's bloody face and large frenzied eyes in the night resembled the muzzle of a predator. All her facial expressions were unnatural. The girl was laughing melodiously, jumping from roof to roof like a ballerina, not taking her eyes off Igor. "Lena. Are you alive after all?" Igor felt a little relief. Only he lowered his eyes and raised them again. The girl had already disappeared. Had he imagined it? Igor shook his head, squinting hard, and looked around. Lena was nowhere to be found. As if she had fallen through the ground. From stress, already hallucinations? He wondered. He heard heavy breathing behind him. "Igor, come with me." His friend's shout made Timur rush at full speed. The suspicion of a pack of dogs or a crowd of drunks who liked to drink in the garage complex in the middle of the night immediately crept into his head. Igor, just hang on, I'll be there soon, Timur repeated to himself. He only guessed Igor's exact location, but he was afraid he might be wrong. When he arrived at the place, Timur found no one, although he was sure that he had run in the exact direction. Fuck, Igor, where are you? Already Timur raised his voice to the entire garage complex. Something heavy and sticky was thrown at Timur's back, the guy couldn't stand on his feet. On him lay the dead Igor, someone had done a very good job of skinning him. In one sharp movement Timur toppled the corpse and ran. He couldn't stay here any longer. Thoughts of Lena's vengeful spirit came to mind, he was right about that. Like an angel, the dead girl floated through the air, chasing her killer while leaving her silhouettes around every corner. Her loud laughter echoed throughout the complex. Timur hoped he would make it as far as he could. There was only a little bit left. Where the entrance to the garage complex should be, there was a dead end. Several garages blocked the guy's way. Timur fell to his knees, tears rolling down his cheeks. Timur, come with me. Remember what you once said? Our friendship to the grave. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.